All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, after the All Star game yesterday, it is now time to look ahead to the second half of the regular season for this Major League Baseball stanza in 2021. And there is plenty to talk about tonight. First and foremost, you want to look at that race in the National League West. Now, the San Francisco Giants were not expected to be in first place at this point. And honestly, the Giants really weren't expected to be at first place at any point this year. But that is where they are at the All-Star break. And you look at this Giants team under manager Gabe Kapler, they're 57-32. Who saw that coming for this team right now? They have a two-game cushion over the defending World Series champions Los Angeles Dodgers, and they also have a sixth place lead on the third place San Diego Padres. And the reason why I bring that up is because these were the two teams that were expected to slug it out for this division crown. But the Giants are saying, we have a say in this as well. You look at it right now, and you have to ask yourself, are the Giants going to have enough to stave off both the Dodgers and the Padres? We'll have to wait and see. But with that said, I don't think the Giants are going to go down without a fight. I think San Francisco is going to go out there and they're going to make a trade to improve this team. And I think, honestly, when it's all said and done, the Dodgers and Padres are going to do the same thing as well. It's going to be one of those who's going to make the first move, because if the Giants make the first move, of course, the Dodgers and Padres are going to counter. If the Dodgers did it, of course, the Giants and Padres would do it. And of course, if the Padres did it, we know what the Dodgers and Giants would do. So it's just going to be a matter of who's going to make that first move and then who's going to throw the counter punches. We'll have to wait and see. You also look at the American League East. And over the years, the AL East has always been one of the tougher divisions in Major League Baseball. And of course, that is no different this year. We have the resurgent Boston Red Sox with a record of 55-36, which is good enough for first place in the AL East. The Tampa Bay Rays, the defending American League champs, are right behind them, 1.5 games back. And then you have both the Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees, who are both 8 games back, respectively. And, for me, you would look at it and say, you know what, an 8-game lead can be overcome. It's going to be so difficult for the Yankees and Blue Jays to do that, just due to the fact that they play so many games against Tampa and Boston. But I look at it, not to say that the Yankees and Blue Jays won't have a say in who wins this division. And on top of that, I still think that the Yankees and Jays each have legitimate shots to get to the postseason. You look at the National League East. And, the New York Mets are in first place in this division, and they have been that way for the majority of the year. But somebody at some point has to take control of this division. The Mets, they have a 3.5-game lead over the Philadelphia Phillies, who are their closest contender right now. But then the Atlanta Braves are right there. They're only 4 games back. The Washington Nationals are 6 games back in fourth place. And then you have the Miami Marlins. They're in last place, but they're only 9 games back. And the way that this division is, it's a situation where that's a deficit that can be made up. For the Mets, I know that they've had their fair share of injuries this season, but it seems like every single time that they're about to go get on a tear, they take a step back. The Philadelphia Phillies, they can't get out of their way all year long. And then you have the Atlanta Braves, and now the Braves, of course, have to deal with the injury to Ronald Acuna Jr., and I think it's a situation where it's either going to make or break this team. Now, we saw the Washington Nationals get back into the mix as they got hot a couple of weeks ago, but they have tapered off, and you have to wonder if that's going to make them be sellers at the trade deadline. And the Marlins, you never know what you're going to get from the Marlins. So it's going to be interesting to see how this race plays out. I do expect both the Mets and Phillies to be buyers at the trade deadline to try to make moves, to try to, strengthen their chances of getting to the postseason. This division right now, the way that things are going, 87 or 88 games might get it done. So if you are at this point, you have to ask yourself, if you are one of these NL East teams, What can you do to get 40 more wins or possibly 45 more wins to win this division? Because that's probably what it's going to take this year. You look at the American League Central, and this is basically the Chicago White Sox division to lose. It was a battle between the White Sox and the Cleveland Indians earlier this season. And you know what? The Indians have tapered off while the White Sox have kept it rolling. And of course, the Pale Holes have a record of 54 and 35 here at the break. They have an 8 game lead over Cleveland. The Detroit Tigers, they've been playing better, but they're still 11 games under 500 and 15 back. The Minnesota Twins, a team that was expected to contend for the top spot, they're 15 games back, and they are a step away from waving a white flag for this season. So you know what? The White Sox are going to win this division going away. And with that said, it's just a matter of them tweaking their roster to see how they can enhance their postseason chances, or at least their chances in the postseason when we get there. Who is going to win the NL Central? Now, this is a very interesting division. You have the Milwaukee Brewers in first place right now. They have a 4 game lead over the second place Cincinnati Reds. And then you have both the Chicago Cubs and St. Louis Cardinals, who are 8 games back. And of course, that terrible stretch that the Cubbies were just on really put them in a bad spot that you have to ask yourself, this is a make or break stretch for the Cubs coming up right out of the break. And like I said, 6 of their first 10 games against the Arizona Diamondbacks coming out of the break. And then they have a 4 game set with the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's really going to tell us what the Cubs are about, because I mean the Diamondbacks are one of the worst teams in baseball, and if you're the Cubbies, you definitely want to go out there and try to get at least 5 out of 6 from them. And if the Cubs, depending on what the Cubs do in that 10 game stretch, I think it's going to be very telling as far as what they do. But I think I look at the Cincinnati Reds; they are alive and well in this division as far as making some noise. I do expect the Brewers to go out there and make a move before the trade deadline to strengthen their chances. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. St. Louis can't get out of their way this year, and I expected the Cardinals to be better than what they are, but unfortunately, that has not been the case. Now, in the American League West, you have to ask yourselves, will the Seattle Mariners and Los Angeles Angels be able to give the Houston Astros and Oakland Athletics a run for their money in this division? You look at it right now, the Stros are the best team in the AL West. Oakland's right there. They're only 3.5 games back. But then you have Seattle, who's 7 games back, and you have the Angels, who are 9 games back. And, Seattle, some of their young talent is beginning to turn the corner. And, for the Angels, they've been playing good. Of course, they have a new star in the making in Shohei Ohtani, and they're going to be getting Mike Trout back soon. So you have to wonder if that is going to be enough to get them right back in the mix. We'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, I think this is Houston's division to lose. Now, in regards to that AL wild card, everybody in the American League East that is not the Baltimore Orioles has a shot, because obviously only one team can win that division. I think it's probably going to be the Red Sox. But with that said, you still have the Rays right there, the Blue Jays, Yankees. And then coming from the West, you have the Angels, Astros, and Athletics. And then you have the Indians in the Central. I think at some point the Mariners do cool off. The Indians, they have their work cut out for them in regards to getting it done for the for the wild card nonetheless. But make no mistake about it, it's a situation where it's doable. You know what I'm saying? You can't take that away from them. It definitely is doable from that standpoint. But you look at it, Cleveland, they're 4.5 games back, but there's such a log jam right there in regards to that American League wild card. Tampa, they're the number one wild card right now. Oakland is right behind them in that 2 slot. But then you look at this log jam. Seattle's 3.5 games back, and then the Blue Jays, Cleveland, and the Yankees are all 4.5 back. And then you have the Angels, who are 5 games, 5.5 back as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to take the bull by the horns and, separate themselves from that pack. And then on the NL side for the wild card, you have to ask yourself, do the teams from the East or the Central have a legit shot? Because I've been saying it for a long time this year. More than likely, both wild cards are going to come out of the West. And that is the case right now. The Dodgers have the number one wild card, and the Padres are 4 games behind them. And the Padres have a 3.5 game lead over the Cincinnati Reds for the final wild card spot in the NL, but that lead has been shrinking coming into the break. The Padres struggled at home with the Colorado Rockies just before the break. The Cincinnati Reds, they were 8-2 in their last 10 games leading up to the break. And I think this Reds team is definitely believing. And, because of that, I think this team can make some noise in the second half of this season. You look at the AL MVP award, and I really think it comes down to Shohei Ohtani or Vlad Jr. You look at what Vlad Jr. is doing. He is a legit Triple Crown candidate. This guy hits for average. He hits for power. He drives in runs, and, he has a decent glove rather at first base. But Shohei is a star. And that's not taking anything away from Vlad Jr. because I think Vlad Jr. is a star as well. But, a lot of people are on the Shohei bandwagon right now. 33 home runs. He's also a starting pitcher for the Angels, and that really accounts for something as well. So I think this is going to be a good race between Shohei and Vlad for the American League MVP. On the NL MVP side, I think it is Fernando Tatis Jr.'s award to lose. You look at this kid right now, 28 home runs, 20 stolen bases. He's probably going to be a part of the 30-30 club at least for this season. And then on top of that, he's on a team that's probably going to go to the postseason. And I think once Ronald Acuna Jr. was lost with the ACL injury for the Braves, I really think that gave Tatis Jr. the inside track for the award. So at the end of the day, who are the 5 teams that I feel are going to make the playoffs from the American League, and who are the 5 teams that I feel are going to make the playoffs from the National League? With that said, I look at it. I think the Red Sox win the AL East. I think they have the resources in place to go out there and make a couple of big moves to separate themselves from the pack. It won't be a big time gap in regards to winning the division because it's so competitive, that American League East, but Boston will do enough. The White Sox are the runaway team in the American League Central. I think the Astros will stave off the Athletics to get the AL West, but I think the 2 wild cards in the American League will be 2 of the smaller market teams that are focused on Moneyball, and that's going to be Tampa and Oakland. Now, out in the National League, I think the Dodgers, they're going to find a way to pull it out. But I think they win the National League West once again. And that's telling because, the Dodgers all of a sudden do have some pitching issues, both with Trevor Bauer and Clayton Kershaw. Milwaukee, I think they will have enough to stave off the pack in the National League Central. And I think the New York Mets find a way to survive. I think the Mets are hoping to get some more guys back healthy, and I think they're going to go out there and make at least one move prior to the trade deadline to kind of get things in motion. And they have the ability to, get on a stretch where they take 11 out of 14 or 12 out of 14 and really distance themselves from the pack in that division. I think both wild cards will come out of the West. I think it's going to be San Diego and San Francisco. But, nonetheless, I look at this second half of the season, and I think it's time for the haves to really separate themselves from the have-nots in baseball. And I think you're going to see it happen. I've talked about it in a previous podcast where I expect teams such as the Minnesota Twins to go out there and definitely be sellers prior to the trade deadline. These next 10 games, I cannot emphasize it enough, are so important for the Chicago Cubs. We're going to find out if they're going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. That's going to be huge. If the Nationals continue to cool off, would they deal Max Scherzer? All of these things more than likely will be in play, and they're going to have a say in regards to who gets to the postseason from both respective leagues. So I think, everybody's cooled off and tapered off a little bit here at the All-Star break. Now it's time to get things back in gear, and now it's time for those contenders to make that final push or get themselves in position to make that final push for a playoff spot. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.